What's that? What's that you said? We want another interview? Oh, thank God you asked. You know, for as many chief marketing officers as I've interviewed over the last 4 years, I've really never interviewed a content creator about the business side of their story. My guest today is Gigi Robinson, a full-time content creator who I actually met on LinkedIn. I kind of think more people should be posting on LinkedIn about their content creator journey, but nonetheless, she agreed to let me interview her on LinkedIn Live, and the interview portion of that is what you're about to watch here. She talks all about her journey from the very beginning of being a brand ambassador and being part of a social media club in college, which is actually a sweet idea, all the way through to today, where she talks about not only the content she makes, the message she spreads into the world, but also the way that she does it, the team that she's built, and the content engine that she's built to do so much and put so much out there. Critically, towards the end of the conversation, we go over mental health, which is one of the topics that she likes to create content on. We talk about those mental roadblocks that anybody might run into on their content creation story and how you might overcome them. I had a lot of fun. I'm really glad she let me interview her at all, and I'm glad I get to bring that now to you. So this is Gigi Robinson. You got a fun war story for me of, like, you know, maybe early on in your content creation career where something, you were frazzled a little bit when something didn't go quite right, and how'd you come out of that? I'm curious.
Well, I live at home with my parents, and despite having a filming do not disturb sign on my door when I'm filming, the other side says, welcome, please come in. So if it's welcome, everyone can come in, whatever, they can disturb me. But if it's the other way, it's like, do not come in. It means nothing. So like I'll be on air or on an interview and my mom will just come on in or start vacuuming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably one of my most annoying things that happens. And I know it's probably not a tech difficulty, but it definitely does challenge me from time to time. And I think that just comes from the nature of working from home, unless you're like living alone.
Yeah, agreed. So I have an on-air sign that I sometimes will throw up and turn on, but it's just me. So I don't live with my folks anymore. I live with my wife in a townhouse, and thankfully her office is 2 floors up. So I don't very often get that knock on the door. And even if I did, most of my stuff, thank God for those who like to look at me or otherwise, is done just on audio. So nobody really has bothered me there. But I tell you what, Gigi, with this new streaming thing, we're learning every day. Now, could you please tell me, unless you told us before, in which case, please tell us twice, what sort of content you create? Let's start there. What messages, themes, content do you put out into the world? Let's start by getting to know all things Gigi, and then I want to talk about the business side of the creation a little bit, actually a lot bit. But let's start with you. Who are you, Gigi?
Sure thing. I'm Gigi Robinson. I'm 24, born and raised in New York City. Got my BFA from the University of Southern California, and I'm almost done with my Master's of Science in Innovation Design from USC as well. I create content about mental health and chronic illness advocacy, as well as, you know, your day-to-day, what it's like to live in New York City as an influencer and what it's like to get PR packages. And I also talk about the creator economy, big social, doing things right, things they could do better, how to partner with brands, what creators look for, so on and so forth. So that's just a long story short about me.
Well, it's a great story, and congrats to you on this content creation journey that you've started yourself on. And when did that content creation story start? Maybe not the first time you did a post on Instagram, but like the first time where you really thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. Did a brand reach out to you with a PR package like that while you were in school? Where did that journey begin?
I think that the journey probably began when I landed at USC and I joined a social media club called USC Reach, started by some really cool content creators. And if you're interested, go to uscreach.com, check them out. Love those kids.
Quick plug.
It's still going 5 years strong. Really, really proud of the group. And we've had hundreds of creators come out of that program. But essentially, when I was there, I really took my passion of photography into the world of social media and creating content that could be used like in advertisements. And honestly, it's crazy to say, but 5 years ago in 2017, if you had a creator that would go out and shoot something with a DSLR, it was, you know, what was going to be hot for Facebook marketing. It was what was going to be really well pushed at the time. So now things have changed because nobody wants high resolution content. Everybody wants iPhone content or mobile phone content on the go. And I just aesthetically, I have a challenge with that because traditionally I am a photographer and videographer. So I try to roll with the punches and, I can do it. I just prefer the aesthetics. But I started working with, I think Hint Water was my first brand that I created with. And I was really shooting on the other side of the camera, like capturing the video and the photo content. And then in the summer of 2018, I got a call to be a brand ambassador for Abercrombie and Fitch. And it was like a 6-month ambassadorship where I essentially was going into the store, creating content, doing events across USC's campus, wearing the clothes, shooting photos in it, shooting videos in it, so on and so forth. And it was just really awesome to be a part of that. And that's where I was like, oh yeah, you can get paid to work with brands, especially in the college market. And by the end of my undergraduate experience, I had worked with 13 different companies as a brand ambassador on top of my internships. So that was awesome.
Wow. So you had a hell of a lot of experience coming out of school with, like, you were like a seasoned creator already. You had a portfolio. You could run the gambit. You know what's really interesting about that, from my perspective? I'm just a couple years above you, which makes this USC Reach thing, which sounds like an awesome club, by the way, sound totally foreign. Are you aware of schools doing that more nowadays? And I don't know if it's an officially sanctioned thing, but having clubs and organizations, or was that just part of the USC vibe that specifically focused on, well, curating content creators? Because I was in college 2010 to 2014. I only knew one guy that ended up in this influencer world on the management side. He actually started out as a brand ambassador too. So it's funny how that works out. But there was nothing like, okay, this is a club for people who want to, maybe I'm even doing it wrong by saying, oh, it's a club for people who want to become big digital creators. But I'm curious. Have you seen that proliferate more? Have you heard about that beyond the USC bubble?
Beyond the USC bubble, in terms of being a social media club, yes and no. We were trying to expand at one point to UCLA and Santa Monica College in Los Angeles, just because we wanted to start local and do what we do best. But scaling a organization from just a club to a national organization or even a regional organization is actually a lot of work. And as college students, we really only, I believe, had the time at the moment to focus on what we were doing and help the people that we were doing. So did we try to scale? Are other universities interested? I think absolutely, especially those in Los Angeles, because that's the mecca of the influencer industry.
Right.
However, I think these brand ambassador programs popping up on campuses really is a catalyst to get more students interested in using their platforms and making money with their platforms and getting their feet wet with it. So I don't really know what that shift has been, but I do know from a student's perspective, it's like, why wouldn't I do that? I get free stuff. I get a great job on my resume, usually with a really high level company. Let's say TikTok does a brand ambassador program, or Abercrombie or Timberland, right? Like, how cool is that you get to say that you partnered with that brand and you get paid, and all you have to do is post on your social media. So it's like always a win-win from a student's perspective, in my opinion. And I just do see these popping up more. I think for anybody watching who is a student, watch out for the brand ambassador positions that are really just affiliate marketing positions. A lot of the shift in the industry has gone from affiliate marketing or affiliate codes to being a brand ambassador, essentially meaning that you're going to be promoting a product that either you've paid for or you already own, and you're promoting it without getting paid, and your income is based on sales. And that is not what I am talking about in terms of being a brand ambassador. A lot of these programs, legit programs, will compensate you hourly, typically, or on like a weekly stipend or weekly set rate per post, as well as with product and big events that are happening in the area. So if you're a student watching, make sure you watch out for that. And if you're a brand doing that, definitely use the right verbiage.
Yeah, and and that's a place where if I were a content creator in college and I were swayed by a brand ambassadorship, and then as I get down the road of talking with that brand, learning that it's a strictly pay for performance, while that's interesting, it doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't feel that it values me up front. It's like, well, I have something to bring to the table that is worth table value. And if I'm able to do great things and make sales, good. But on the other hand, if I don't, you still have the content that I create to put on your owned and operated properties. You can put them everywhere. You can even target my school with the stuff that I make and make sales that will never attribute themselves back to me. But there's still value there. I'm a big fan of just pay your freaking talent, right? But that's,
Yes.
and it's weird to think that that's like a more like traditional way of doing things, but that's just my thought. Yeah, brands, a good note for that, and definitely for younger creators who are just getting their feet wet, something to look out for. Maybe not the worst opportunity in the world sometimes to take opportunistically, but also, I guess if you're at a school in Southern California, maybe there might be groups like this which can help you start to elevate your brand presence. And I really think that there's an entrepreneurial opportunity there for somebody to create a college network, and they probably have to do that full time, but go and create that. Gigi, what about you? Huh? What do you think?
We'll see.
Go around and do that. So don't want to spill any of the secret sauce. Instead, let me ask you about this. You come out of school, so many ambassadorships under your belt, well seasoned in creating content. I want to ask two things, and the second part will be the actual business. The first part will be, like, at least to me, what would be a social or mental barrier. How did you couple both getting this work, getting this money, which was great for brands for just posting content, and any, I don't want to say stage fright, but any initial apprehension around just going around and making the content that might seem like embarrassing? How did you get over that public? Because that's what would happen to me. I've done it down the street. If I'm walking around, I don't have like a selfie stick with me, but I like walk down, like video on myself, and people will be like, "Oh, blogger!" People have screamed at me about it, and it makes me feel really self-conscious. How did you get around that? Because obviously you have in a wonderful way.
It's nobody else's business.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important to remember that, like, it's none of your business what anybody else thinks of you. And people can say things, but usually it's just a projection of them. A lot of times when people are like, oh, that's so cringe. Like, literally when I was working with TikTok from 2018 into 2019 and 2020, people were like, oh my gosh, that's so cringe. Like, why are you doing that? Ew, TikTok's like a dancing app. Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
I became like the TikTok girl. And as soon as the pandemic happened, guess what? The tables turned.
Money starts raining.
Everyone came
Popularity.
running to me.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know anyone at TikTok that could help me? Would you be able to tell me a little bit more about working with TikTok, like so on and so forth? So I really just think that it's important to stay true to who you are and just continue to do your own content. And I also do have a really like fearless, positive, go, go, go mindset where like I really genuinely am focused on what I'm doing, and something that somebody else says, like if that's going to deter me from my goal, then it's irrelevant to me. I take feedback. I listen to, a lot of workshops and a lot of different, I think, like learning methodologies to help me produce content at the speed that I do it. But none of that includes listening to what ignorant, arrogant people have to say about my career. I don't go around telling people in investment banking that they're jerks when most of the time a lot of them are when you meet them out, right? I'm not going to say that the same way that somebody would come up and say, oh, influencers are so self-absorbed or whatever, what you're doing is embarrassing. I don't really care. It has nothing to do with you and nothing to do with me. So like, whatever. That's how I deal with that.
You know what I found? And a lot of the folks that I came out of school with, the two most prevalent positions they went into were management consulting and iBanking. Now, not going to cast any personal aspersions on any of those people or their roles, but you're right. Nobody's actually publicly calling them out, but they do it. It's a very crude public for content creators, and I think that tide is turning. Very cool, by the way. So I first saw TikTok. I started uploading my first TikToks in like middle of 19, and even then I was like, damn, I think I'm early. 2018 is like crazy. How did you even know about that? Anyway, so talk to me about the speed of the content production, because I do want to get into the sheer volume of stuff that you do, as you nicely highlighted in your new LinkedIn newsletter, which we'll also talk about in a second. But what does that process look like for you to get content out there quickly? Because I know that's part of the game too.
Yeah, well, something I learned from a friend of mine, London Laz. You guys should go check him out. He's super, super big, very viral content creator. But we really had a discussion about delegation and how delegating tasks to certain team members, even if you can only get an assistant at the first place. Like for me, having my operations team and my assistant there just go through and make sure that everyone's like getting paid on time, that all of my like project deadlines are due, making sure everybody is like staying true to their workload, like sending me in things, hitting deadlines. Like that's really important for me because I personally don't have time to do that kind of thing. I'm focused on interviews. I'm focused on shooting content, being on set, going to events, making those in-person connections. So then we can like go back to the drawing board and I can say, oh, I met XYZ tonight. Here's their email. Okay. Operations, you go and send the partnerships manager that email. That person then sends out the email, which generates the lead, which generates the connection to make a partnership long term. And then my video editor will edit things. Maybe then I'll have a guest on my podcast. So it's a huge team that we have. Well, not huge, but in my eyes, it's huge. It's like
it seems huge
people.
To me. How many people is it?
We have 6 internally and 3 externally. So definitely pretty big. And I'm really excited and proud of that. And again, I don't think I would be creating as much as I am and doing as much as I do without the delegation. And also with that comes investment. And that's the thing where I think people say you have to invest money into a business to actually succeed. And I think there's like 2 sides to each coin, but I really do think investing in creating a team of people that genuinely cares about you and your mission and the work that you're doing, and paying them and compensating them and working with them to continue to build is extremely imperative to your overall growth and your overall brand.
I'm curious because looking back now on this team of 9 producing content for you all the time, and that you're investing in and that are returning value for that, I'm sure it's like a no-brainer. Of course you should invest in that. But when you were starting out and you had maybe 1 person on your team or 2, that I'm guessing was a pretty steep mountain to climb, or at least to look at when it came to making that investment. What were some of those early mental hurdles that most people who are building a team are probably going through right now, given the perspective of somebody now looking back down that mountain?
Some of the hurdles. Well, I think sometimes it's about like lead generation or simply like the income to be able to afford building a team. And I think a lot of the time people want to go out before they go up. And I think it's really important to stay focused and build a team that like is very solid on doing a very specific thing or set of things correctly, in a good way that people respond to, and building like your brand. So like, let's say I have like 4 or 5 projects I want to build out with, but that has nothing to do with It's Gigi and what I do at my media company. So right now we're continuing to scale that up. And until I get to the point where that sustains itself, I can't invest in those other projects with my time, with my money, with my energy. So for now, I would suggest like really finding your focus and then from there building. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it makes sense to me because I started that small journey myself 2 years ago. And I'll tell you what, Gigi, having that team of 9 is super impressive and will be to anybody watching this stream. I mean, currently my team, if you want to call it, at my business is myself, and I have a fantastic fellow who helps me edit audio, and that is what I am able to do right now. And to me, I'm even still going through some of those early mental hurdles of like, wow, it would be really nice to have a ... but ... where it's a balance of, do I make the investment or not? And time again, I return to that notion that it is worth it. But it takes a bit of gumption to get over that. Now, let's talk a little bit about where this content is going. I met you and was connected to you via the LinkedIn creator cohort that I believe we are both in. I believe we're both in the same one. And I loved this idea of content creators who are very popular everywhere else coming to LinkedIn, because I think you get very, very small glimpses into the business side of creation from the creator POV. That's why I'm having you on here. Can you talk about your inspiration? Why did you come and start posting stuff to LinkedIn? And then I want to talk about the most recent iteration of that, which is, of course, that newsletter, which I really enjoyed the first post of at least.
Thank you. Yeah, I joined LinkedIn actually back in 2016. I may have even joined before that, but I didn't really, have a network there yet.
Right.
But one of my professors at the time when I was at the Fashion Institute of Technology, fun fact, I transferred schools from FIT to USC. I don't really talk about that often because, anyway, dark period of my life. We move on.
We all have.
But this teacher said, by the end of the semester, I want you to have 100 contacts on LinkedIn or connections. And that was like our goal by the end of the semester. And I'm like an overachiever. So I was like, haha, look, I got like 200. And at the time that was like really cool. And I was just really using it to network with professors, network with other people in New York City, stuff like that. And then I went to USC. And if you're not familiar, the University of Southern California has an insane network called the Trojan Family, and it is just filled with all kinds of people. Really, any person you might want to be connected with, you can find through USC. And I think that was something that was really attractive to me. So when I went to USC, when I wanted to, do an internship, or if I got an internship, I would connect with everybody, because likely everybody who I connected with on LinkedIn or worked with would have a connection later on that I would lead to. So that was why I initially joined. And I've been on LinkedIn posting about things like way back. You can scroll and see me talking about the internships and the values that I got from my internship at Paramount, from my internship at Warner Bros., from my internship at Movers and Shakers. And I think that being on LinkedIn as a student is also a really interesting boundary, because there's some of these like bros on TikTok that kind of make fun of LinkedIn culture, right? It's, I'm so excited to announce, I'm thrilled to share, blah, 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 blah. But like, we all do that. And like, we are allowed to feel happy and accepted. And just because you aren't getting those kinds of responses in your workflow, why are you bringing other people down? So that just irks me. I ignore those kinds of people, although I do think it's funny because the stereotype of it is very true. And I really started sharing about my journey as a creator, like probably a lot of like 2021. And then in October 2021, I joined the LinkedIn Creators program. And from there, I've just really been iterating on talking about mental health, advocacy, sharing different things that I am doing so other people can attend those kinds of virtual events, and also talking about the creator economy, which is the most important, helping other people implement strategies that I've learned into their workflows as well.
Well, I'm so glad to know that you're, deeply involved in the platform and have been for a long time. I think more creators need to do it, because it's such a rich ocean of, to get right down to it, the people who are going to give you your next deal. And people will see you on TikTok and Instagram, and you can get them from there as well. But here it's just like, it's not shooting fish in a barrel, but it's close. So, creators, if you are watching this somewhere off of LinkedIn, just start posting to LinkedIn. You don't even have to do that much at first, but people are starting, and you'll want to be early there, especially among your contemporaries. Now, Gigi, you also started publishing a newsletter here, which I've never done, but I really admire the folks who are able to put together that. It's a quite long form piece of content to do, and it's so rich. It envelops every other element of what you're doing. And what struck me from that, as well as from recent posts you've made, is just like the sheer density of activity that you get involved with, which makes it all the more impressive that you have not only like maybe a photo that you put somewhere, but also a super long, like almost essay format blog post. The breadth is fantastic. How in the heck are you able to do all this stuff? And by the way, because I saw that in a post you made the other day, you said, I think it was like, I came home at like 11 o'clock, or I was finished at 11 o'clock, and I still felt like I had so much to do. I've had that feeling as well. But that list you made was like 15 things long. So I'm just wondering how you section your time out and invest those resources shrewdly to get the sheer volume of things you get done.
Yeah. I mean, great question. I ask myself this very often because I jam my days packed. I have already been on a discovery call this morning. I have this. I'm going out to something with a friend in a bit. Then I have 4 other calls this afternoon. So I usually have my call days where I'm exclusively digital. I'm exclusively here in my studio. Other days I really spend like in the city. On Tuesday, I have back-to-back things in the city, and I just try to optimize my time by scheduling in a smart way and giving myself that structure, because if you don't have that structure and you're just kind of like all over the place doing calls one day, maybe half in the city the next day, it really creates this like disruption that is confusing and ultimately will lead you to burnout. So that is something that I do. And again, I delegate my tasks to people. So I do have a copy editor. So once I write the bones of something, she will go in and do the meat of it. And that is like really beautiful because we can collaborate. I can give her raw, like, stuff to work with. And then she really me produce it, whether that's thing for a brand, whether that's tightening up the newsletter, whether that is writing a viral video. Like that is something that my copy editor does. My partnerships manager manages all the communication that goes into brand deals. My PR team focuses on the events that I'm going to, the podcast bookings that I'm usually on, so on and so forth. So again, it does come down to delegation. Additionally, I would say it's also about priorities. So what is a priority to me and why do I want to commit to doing a certain task is really important. And for me as a creator, and this is I think true for any creator, a lot of times people say, well, how did you get an invite to that event? You have to just start going. Even though the events are small at first, they will lead to bigger events. And again, you'll never know who you're meeting there. I got invited, aside from the LinkedIn creators community, I'm involved with the YouTube Shorts creators community. And through that, I had the opportunity to go to the Jennifer Lopez Netflix halftime documentary Tribeca Film Festival world premiere. I know that was a mouthful. I don't know how I put that all out in one. But that was great because I not only got to be there with my team from YouTube Shorts, but I also got to meet the TikTok team that was there with their TikTok creators and the other TikTok creators and YouTube Shorts creators there. So it was like really cool. And I think going to these events is almost like the employee resource groups for creators. And I always say this because we don't have that. We don't have that offline community. That's actually what USC Reach was all about from the get-go. It was about bringing in guest speakers that could really help us curate our community better, and taking someone from the outside. So now that I'm like a graduate of that, I would say, I, go to all of these events in New York City and I meet people face to face, and that's how we find people with common interests. Even last night, I'm actually writing a post about this, like right now, or I was before I got onto this, about how last night I went to this event by YouTube Shorts. It was called YouTube had a series called Make More Money on YouTube that they streamed for creators, and it was a creators like after party vibe, and every single person there was a creator or involved in the industry, and we felt so comfortable. Everyone was creating content together. Everyone had tripods, like microphones, and like we felt so chill and calm, and I really, really loved that.
Yeah.
Because you can't find that outside of these events, right? If you go to these events and you're like, oh, could you grab a photo for me? Or, oh, could you, stand with like the tripod? Like everybody's gonna be like, of course. Yeah, obviously. And like, I think that's a really beautiful thing. So I don't know if I fully answered your question on how my brain operates, but I did give you a little insight into how I schedule things.
Well, just the whirlwind of things you brought up, even in that answer, I think just lends folks, I'm sure you've seen this and heard it, the sheer density that you have to do. Because I would say that if you weren't that active, probably wouldn't be as successful as you are right now. And that is a part of the game, the stamina, but also the density of it all. Very cool that you're there, attending events all the time. I think for folks who aren't in major metropolitan areas, it's probably something that they wish they had more of. But isn't it funny that in an event like that, everybody has a little selfie stick or a tripod or a camera walking around? And to hark back to what we were talking about earlier, that environment of like, oh, I'm going to get called out in the street is like, it's almost weird if you don't get called out for doing something like that in an event. So I would say a wonderfully inclusive environment for creators. Now, let me round out and thank you so much for being with me here. I want to ask you one more thing, and crucially, because we had determined through this interview that you post content everywhere, you got a huge team supporting, and you do a lot of stuff. But when it comes back to the founding principles of Gigi as a creator, mental health is central to that process. And for anybody getting started on their content creation journey today, that can be the biggest hurdle of all. You are a mental health advocate, I would say, at least socially an expert, in navigating that journey from the creator POV. What would be a few parting words that you would give to would-be or currently creators who are going through either a mental block or wondering who cares or just having doubts about either their self-worth or their contributions?
Yeah, I think anyone, even if you aren't venturing into the world of being a creator, is going to experience some form of psychological implications and interaction from social media, right? Like, I think the relationship that we have with it, the way the algorithm messes with our minds, the way that we are physically inclined to scroll and scroll and scroll and this way and tap and do all of that, that's like almost like a fixation that we have. Like, I know nowadays, like, I have a fixation to my phone, and if I'm nervous, I'll pick it up. So I try my best to not do that. Or in my my nightly, like, watching, when I'm watching Hulu, I don't have Hulu ad free, so the ads come on and I immediately pick up my phone and I mute my commercial because I don't want to watch it. So I'm trying to not do that best. And I think becoming more aware of your habits around when you use social media and when you resort to it is important, because then that will give you basically key signs of how you are reacting to it. In terms of creating and in terms of stamina, go at your own speed. I always tell people to make a list of content that they want to create. And if you can get one post up a week 4 times a month, AKA once a week, for a month, then I think that is a great place to start. You can create 4 pieces of content. They're super unique. And guess what? If you make 4 videos, you can also post that to Reels, to Shorts, to Snapchat, to TikTok. And then guess what? If you write a long form paragraph, if you post that as a picture to Instagram, you can also post that to LinkedIn. And you can also take segments of that and post it to Twitter. So really think about repurposing your content in a lot of different ways. And as I usually say, everything you need is within. So you will definitely just need to look within a little bit to create.
Well, I really appreciate that perspective. Critically important for anyone on that journey, no matter what they're making. Gigi, if people want to learn more about you, what you're doing, and everything about your life, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to GigiRobinson.com, Google my name, Gigi Robinson, or my is @it's Gigi Robinson everywhere. So
fantastic. Yeah. Gigi Robinson, thank you so much for joining the show.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Ever since the conversation, I've been thinking that some entrepreneur out there is going to make a network of social media clubs across college campuses. And similar to the way that brand ambassadorships have grown, somebody will do that for just being a great creator. I don't know if it's going to be the beginnings of an agency or something, but like somebody's going to do that. We'll see who. I had a lot of fun. I hope you liked listening into that. If you like these, you should like this video. And if you like me, you should subscribe to this channel and hit the bell or whatever YouTube tells you to do. On a real note, it will get you more videos and more conversations like this, which if you're a content creator interested in the business side, which I hope a lot of people are, you might like this. Regardless, I'm going to keep making them. So I'll be here and it'll just be easier if you sub. To that, I got to get on to another one of these. So I will see you later. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time. Goodbye.